So, today we're going to touch on a few different topics. We're going to talk about education, creativity. As you see, the company's called Create Labs. Creativity is the core of everything that we do, and community. We always started with social impact, and that's always been a core part of our mission. So, I'm always going to make sure that whatever we do is going to stay right along with that. Um, so just, he covered it in the bio briefly, but you don't know me from a hole in the wall. So just to understand who I am, I come at this from a different perspective. I am not your traditional software engineer. I didn't graduate from a Stanford. I come at this from what they call a non-traditional background, which means that I started as a creative. I started as an artist. I started as an educator. I started in the community, in a low income, impoverished community that didn't have all these resources given to me. And I had to find my way. I had to navigate to this point. So my first career was in the music industry, working in entertainment. I then became an educator, worked in the classroom, speaking and teaching middle school youth language arts. Um, I'm a Gates Scholar, and that what that meant was I was given an opportunity as a poor young Hispanic child from New York City. I was selected, one of the very few people selected to become a Gates Scholar. It meant it was a full ride for my entire life: bachelor's, master's, PhD, full scholarship, and that is a very rare opportunity that not everyone gets. And I understood what that meant for me, and I had to take advantage of that opportunity and make the most of it to give back. Um, and we started Create Labs for that very reason. We wanted to make sure that other people who didn't get that Gates scholarship, from my community, who were driven and ambitious, knew what was coming down the pike, right? And that meant that we would go into underserved communities with cutting edge technologies to show them what was possible, just to get their hands on it. We were the first people to introduce headsets to a lot of young people, VR, AR, drones, robotics. We put these things in their hands to say, this is not fake. It's not science fiction. It's not something that's limited to what you see in movies, that this is real, that it is now possible for you to develop something with this. And it was through that work that I was able to get access and be one of the first people in history to get access to what's called now GPT technology. And being early in that space gave me a chance to spend time with it, understand it from all different types of angles, and then now take that opportunity to then share it with other people. And I've been doing that for the better part of 3 years. And it's only within this last year that people are now starting to understand what ChatGPT was. And a lot of people are reaching back out to me like, man, you told me this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I didn't get it, but now it makes sense. So now I'm just continuing that work to spread the word. So I think, I don't know who the audience is. I don't know what prior knowledge you have coming into this, but I want to cover a couple core pieces just as a prerequisite to make sure that we all understand what we're dealing with here. So what is ChatGPT? We've seen it. We might have tinkered with it and played around with it, but I don't think everyone truly understands what it is still to this day. So just the history. So OpenAI developed GPT technology. And this technology, this transformer, predicts text. And they created a platform to build with it and gave you a space called the playground. No one knew how to use the playground. No one knew what it meant to prompt in the playground, because you would get a blank screen and no one knew what they were supposed to do with that blank screen. So myself and a few of the other ambassadors who got very good with these technologies would show people how these technologies work, but it still wasn't getting across. And then once they changed it and added a chat interface to it and put in some preset interactions and some prompts to make it easier to interact with a chat, that's when it just clicked for everyone. So now Chat GPT is just the chat interface of what's now the GPT-4 platform technology. So if you are more creative and you want to get in there, get past the Chat GPT interface, you still can sign up for the platform and go right to OpenAI and sign up for GPT-4 access, and you'll see all the settings on the back end of ChatGPT to really allow you to possibly create your own ChatGPT with your own presets, with your own prompts. So there are multiple ways to interact with this technology. ChatGPT is just the one that's easiest and most user-friendly for a lot of different reasons. But it holds a lot of potential. From an education standpoint, we have to get past the idea that like we are still smarter than this technology. We have to just treat it as its own smart technology, right? It is its own intelligence, right? And as you see here from the latest tests with GPT-4, we've reached a new level, right? We felt confident that like AI is here and we're here. The parity is going to be more unclear between what we know, what the AI knows, and how we both process intelligence. We just have to treat it as if we're coexisting with this intelligence. And it does some things really well and other things not. Same as us, right? We're no different. So as you see here from these aptitude scores, scoring the 80th percentile, 99th percentile on the GRE. I didn't score on the 99th percentile on the GRE. Did you? And AP. I didn't even get AP classes in high school. And here it is scoring in the 85th and 86th percentile. So there is still room for growth in these areas. Obviously, calculus isn't a strong suit for this AI, but we have to respect where it is now, right? We can't just discount its capabilities no longer. Generative AI in general, right? So now this crosses, it's now becoming more what's called multimodal. So multimodal means it's not just text anymore. Where large language models that power ChatGPT, very much language and text-based and multilingual. But generative AI takes those same concepts, that same type of technology, and applies it to music, as we've seen lately, art, imagery, video now, anything that it is a multimodal media outlet and media form of media is now getting the generative AI treatment. And generative AI just applies algorithms to a subset of data, training data, to try and predict what it should do next to emulate that data, right? So it's only going to perform as well as the training data that was fed to it. And if you want it to create videos, you have to feed it a training set of videos, a training set of images for the image generators. This technology is not hard to grasp. It's very much an input and output process. What you put in is what you get out, right? And the only variable in that is you, right? With prompting and how you persuade it and ask it and request it to provide a certain output that not only reflects the input training data, but reflects your vision, your imagination, and your creativity. Now, prompt engineering is really the core of this to craft that creative output. Now, I consider myself a prompt engineer, prompt designer. I kind of like the word prompt design, but prompt engineering seems to have taken off, where, it's a set of instructions. And I think people get caught up on this the most. I was at a recent talk where folks were asking in the audience, what is prompt engineering? And someone gave a very technical answer of what prompting is and where you can get the prompt resources, and you take a prompt from this database and you apply this, and I'm like, stop. Prompt engineering is just communication. It's just simply communicating with the machine. A lot of engineers book time with me to learn how the system works, and because they're thinking like engineers and coders and programmers, they're thinking of like this shorthand of like, what's the keystroke? What's the command to get this output? And I'm like, there is no command. All you have to do is just simply speak to the machine. They're like, what? What do you mean? And I'm like, well, how would you describe a new concept to a child, to a beginner on a particular task, right? You would break it down. I have 4 children, right? And I have 8-year-old children, 4-year-old children, a child in college, university, where to my 8-year-old, I would take him, and even if it was teaching him a new game, right? I would say, all right, this is how the game works. I'm going to give you a set of instructions, and this is what I want in return. So when I do something, this is what you do back. And let's try this a couple times together to see if you get it. And then once you try it, I'm going to give you some feedback. So the child tries something after you give it some instructions, and you say, okay, good job. that's close, but now add X, Y, and Z. Add these additional steps or reattempt, but do it this way instead, right? And you would do this a couple times, guiding the person with some examples, with some trial and error. And then at some point, you want to do some independent practice. You want to hand over the reins to the person and say, okay, you try. So then they try, and then with enough reinforcement, they can do it on their own. That is prompt engineering. At its true core, that is what you're doing with the machine. You're saying, okay, this is a set of instructions. This is what I want to do with you today. Here are some examples. The better my instructions, the better you understand. So it's all about how good can you articulate those instructions? How detailed can you be? How succinct without getting into the weeds of the details and getting off track. So you explain to the person what it is that you want them to do. You have these examples. You're doing the same thing with the AI. The AI needs you to communicate to them the set of instructions of what to do with this very powerful technology. And then when you get those outputs, you are always allowed to provide feedback, right? RLHF is reinforcement learning from human feedback. This technology relies on that for you to tell it exactly what it's doing right and telling it what it's doing wrong. And then you can get the correct output. I use this same process between the language models dealing with text and the image models dealing with pictures and visuals, same process. So this prompt engineering skill set is going to have some cross-modal functionality and purpose. And now as things are evolving, things are getting to a point where like, oh, prompting is dead. You have auto GPT and you have this and everything's automated. Your instructions for automation are equally as important. Your ability to understand what is good prompting is going to be your way to assess what is bad prompting, right? So if the computer is creating its own prompts, you can check that against how you would do things. And it's also not just good and bad. It's about what is your style, because we get hired by large enterprise companies to do things because we have a very particular style, or that client has a very particular style and how they want that output. They want it in a specific tone that reflects their company, a specific voice and messaging and style that reflects that brand and that product. And it's not about good or bad. It's just about how accurate is it to their approach. So again, this skill is going to become more in demand, and schools are still trying to adjust and catch up, but you are not going to see many right now at this stage, many degrees in prompt engineering. Soon, I would say, you might see more programs that are dedicated to this skill set. Right now, they're treating it more as like a novelty. They're treating it as a novelty at the lower, K-12 level, secondary school. They're treating it as a novelty in the university level. Maybe I've seen a couple certificate programs or some books, but I think universities and education across the board need to take this skill more seriously and adapt and adjust with the industry as it moves to new elements that are incorporating of prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is going to change, and your programs and your course around it should change accordingly, but you shouldn't ignore it at all, because people right now are getting jobs as prompt engineers by self-teaching themselves how to do prompt engineering. No one yet is getting jobs at this level paying $335,000 a year because they completed a formal accredited degree in prompt engineering. I didn't, right? And I'm a prompt engineer. I'm one of the first prompt engineers in history when it's regarding generative AI. And, none of that came from the Gates Scholar work, right? I have up to about, I left late in my PhD. So I have a bachelor's, master's, and almost a PhD, all in different fields, nothing to do with prompt engineering. But all of my work these days are all related to this skill set. So something's happening in education right now, and we're all seeing it. This was a movie called Real Genius back from the 1980s, and there was a very important scene that I'm showing you here. So what you see here is a Typical lecture hall in university. And is everyone engaged? Probably not. Is everyone paying attention? Not at all. So let's see what happens. There's a shift. One person figures out, you know, I don't need to be here so long as I have the notes, so long as I have the recap. So I'm going to let technology, even in low form technology, replace me and do the job for me. There are going to be some latecomers, you know, like this student here that's not ready to make that shift. But right now in your classroom, you're probably getting a mix of people who are doing the work versus those who are automating the work. Can you hold this off? Probably not. So what's the shift? The teacher goes along with it, right? We're almost here, possibly. And if you think of this in current days, are students using ChatGPT? Yes. Are professors and faculty and educators using ChatGPT? Yes. Are both working with AI to make their lives easier at this stage? Yes. Is it officially sanctioned by the university and the schools? Probably not, but it's happening anyway. So let's think about some of those best practices and ways that I've seen and that I've done and helped educators use ChatGPT in the classroom in a positive and constructive way. So like I said, I taught middle school. Middle school, for those who are in other countries, think about 12, 12 years old, 13 years old. And in my early career, I was an EdTech founder. And I started a startup, an EdTech startup called New School, where it took all the things in youth culture, pop culture, that kids really wanted to do and pull that into the classroom with lessons, right? So like, all right, if you don't want to do this core generic lesson on science that I just got from my school district or from my university or from the classroom, that's just paper-based, black and white, because it's boring, right? It's not engaging. Let's see if we could find that same science concept in something in your life already where it exists, right? So my children play Roblox all day. So if I want to teach them anything related to geometry or science or math, I'm definitely going to try and incorporate that within Roblox because I know I'm going to have their attention. Let's see if OpenAI can do the same. ChatGPT. So yep, here it is, exploring forces in Roblox. Students will be able to identify and describe different types of forces. You can do a warm-up, direct instruction, guided practice, independent practice, closure, and assessment, of course. All within one day's class covering this topic. Now, I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time writing lessons on the weekends to get ready for that following week. Here it is, ChatGPT doing it for me, taking the two core concepts that I wanted to bring together and doing it without a problem. All right, now I have an older student. I have an 18-year-old student who's trying to learn the basics of Python for school. Where should he start? And do you have any tips on how to break it down in very simple terms, using analogies and metaphors like with Japanese anime? I know I have students, and same with me. If you want to teach me a very complex topic, let's find a way to connect it to something that I really understand. Same with Roblox, but a little differently here because I also like learning from metaphors and analogies. So let's see how it handles that for Python and anime. Here you go. When I pause it. Learning Python can be enjoyable and a rewarding experience. Here's some tips combining Python as a scripting language. Think of Python as a script writer for an anime series. Okay. Variables in Python, imagine them as the names of the different anime characters. Functions. Functions are like special moves or abilities that anime characters have. Control structures are like plot twists in an anime series. All right. And I did this live with a school and the kids got it immediately. Libraries are just like anime genres or settings. To learn Python, and you can follow these links for more resources. Now, this is an ongoing thing. So now you have a starting point. So now this thread is now your starting point to continue down that path to learn Python. So if you do something in school or you're working on a Python test or you're working on practicing, you could always come back with more questions and say, okay, I'm not quite getting this variable part. Can you go down and break this down for me? It's going to stay along this thread and follow back with more anime metaphors to help further reinforce that variables concept. So now another tedious part of education is, I know for those who are teaching towards what's called standards, right? And I don't know what the global standards are yet in this area, but in the States, it's called the Common Core, right? So there's a Common Core set of standards where like I have to match this amazing lesson that I made with my students to a set of government issued or entity issued index of standards to align. It's a set of codes to show I am teaching something that's rigorous. I am teaching something that's aligned to what the school expects of me. And this is especially important if you're going to come up with a creative lesson that the school did not provide you, right? That's something that like I made this up, lessons with science and Roblox, and I want to connect this back to the classroom. So let's see how this works. So now it's going through these codes, it's applying my lesson to these standards, and it's finding a match, right? Matchmaking is an important embedded functionality of these language models in ChatGPT, and it's finding a match that's based on my exploring forces in Roblox lesson, and it's found, okay, great, within the Common Core standards, this lesson on Roblox aligns to 6.1, engaging effectively in a range of collaborative discussions with your students on grade 6 topics. 6.2, interpreting information presented in diverse media formats like video games. So all of this, what I'm showing you, is making the life of the educator easier, is helping them become more efficient as educators. Now, the idea of pushing back on students using it, that's a bit more core to some other topics that I want to bring up. So learning the new skills to coexist in a post-ChatGPT world. So when I speak to different audiences, when I speak to educators of young kids, what I tell them is there's gonna be some kid that's gonna be a wise Alec, and he's gonna say, hey, algebra, I don't need this, I have a calculator. What you would respond to that child is, you're right. When you become an adult, you are going to use a calculator. You're not going to do long division by hand. You're not going to do any of this by hand. But I don't care. You still need to learn the core fundamentals of this to train your brain on how to think critically about this math problem and understand how the functions work, even if you're going to get a tool to do this for you later in life. Now, same applies here for text. And this is the calculator moment for language and for text. And you tell the child, correct. When you become a professional, you probably will be using ChatGPT for a lot of this. But right now, while you're in your formative years, it is important for you to develop this skill and do it by hand to build that muscle in your brain on how this works. And then when you are paying your own bills and you're an adult, then feel free, go ahead and use ChatGPT. However, now on the flip side, with university, for the most part, these are formative adults, right? These are young adults who should be treated as adults, which means that you tell them like, look, if you are going to use ChatGPT to take any shortcuts, that is on you, and you are only shortchanging yourself. I get paid here as an educator either way. If you really want to be here at university to prepare yourself for being a competitive and skilled professional, then go out there and do the work and make sure that you learn those skills. But if you're going to have AI do everything for you and you have no skills that you possess on your own, good luck in the job market. Now, with that said, it is important that we all get comfortable with these tools, because employers and jobs and companies are going to have a new expectation of productivity, because they're like, with AI, this could be done at this time and at this level. If you're doing all this by hand, you might not be performing as quickly and as fast, or you might have to work twice as hard, given the new standard of expectations with productivity in a world where you coexist with AI. Now, from an education standpoint, we had a head start. Not everyone recognized this head start, but we did have this head start. Back in like 2010, 2011, there were a lot of books that came out around 21st century skills, right? This book was one of them, where they stressed these 4 C's. And they said, if you learn these 4 C skills, these are the skills that you will need to coexist with automation in a world of automation, basically where we are now with AI. So one of those skills was critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. Critical thinking will always be your advantage over AI. 100%. It will get good, but it won't be as good as you as a critical thinker. Creativity, right? It is good at producing what you tell it to produce. You still have to be creative in the prompting of what you want to tell it to provide you as an output. Collaboration, it's important now across all of these technologies to realize that it's a global workforce. I work with people in several different countries, and it's important for everyone to communicate and collaborate because not everyone is here in my office with me. And like I said, the core of prompt engineering, the core of any of this generative AI technologies is communication. So now we attended a lot of trainings as educators on how to teach to these skills 10 years ago. Whether or not school shifted, they did not, for the most part. And now we're like, oh no, they did tell us about this and we didn't do enough to prepare for this new world. A lot of my doctoral work, my PhD work, was around reading these guys' books around the future of automation, the future of working with robots and AI, and what are those new basic skills. So similar to the 21st century skills and the 4 C's, this went a little deeper and actually explained what we do well that robots do not do well. So metacognition, right, is one of them. How to change problem-solving strategies is not something computers do well. Remember, they are programmed to solve problems in a very specific way. Generative is becoming more responsive of like GPT-4 has very good reasoning capabilities. So it's like, okay, what should I do next if the first one doesn't work? But we are faster and more nimble with this. Think about plan Bs. How good are you at plan Bs? How good are you at coming up with a new solution, an impromptu solution that wasn't planned for, right? A contingency plan, right? That is going to become a very important skill now in the world of automation. Complex communication. What I'm doing right now is considered complex communication because I am talking to dozens, if not hundreds of you. I don't see any of you. I'm looking at a green dot on my laptop, but I still have to convey the importance of this message and convince you of something without seeing your face. That's difficult. And it's even more difficult to do it face to face with you because now I'm seeing your face to see if you're engaged. Are you bored? Are you sleepy? Are you feeling a type of, are you offended by the things that I'm saying? And what I say next will have to be responding to your facial expressions. So this is very important in sales for those of you who work with people to try and persuade them to purchase something. Students, right? When you're engaging with a room of students, you're going to see some students are happy, sad, stressed, tired, anxious, and you have to navigate a room of all of them to convey your message, right? This is going to be a very important skill that goes beyond using computers. And again, just, along the same lines of solving problems with no rules, right? Programming needs rules. It follows an if-then logic. If you see this, then you perform this task, right? So how many of you can solve things without any consideration prior, right? So I would definitely recommend take a look at these 2 books and see how they resonate today. So from a creativity standpoint, this is where I have fun. I geek out because this is a lot of fun and just seeing like where are we going next. Me, I'm a closeted world builder, right? I love building worlds. I love the idea of it. I'm a big fan. I have a bunch of Star Wars paraphernalia behind me. I have George Lucas stuff. I have J.J. Abrams. This is the J.J. Abrams Bad Robot logo, and James Cameron with Avatar. Now, these people are world builders, right? They're imaginative. They have a vision of this whole universe and characters and planets and drama. but they also have the skill set of being a film producer, a film director, film writer, um, and they are formally trained in their craft where they can produce the outputs of their creativity. Now, for someone like me, I'm not a producer, I'm not a film director, but I feel I have the same level of creativity and vision and imagination to create a universe of characters. But now the tools that they're putting in front of us now give you that capability. These are some of my favorite tools that are in my workflow or are coming out soon that I think give us all that capability now. So now this is Midjourney 5. I'm a big fan of Midjourney and what they're doing and how they've evolved over time. Version 5 really executes realism based on what you have explained through your own imagination. This is Wonder Studios. It is another way to produce short films and videos just from your phone and then apply 3D animated characters over as almost like a filter onto those characters. This is DID and Synthesia, very similar, where you can create a human-like generative avatar and then write in the text box what you want the avatar to say, and they will perform and express those words. And then here you have Opus, which is very cool. All of this scene, everything you see in this scene here was text generated by this prompt right here. So you see here the hills roll down in steeping motion, clusters of trees. Now that's all back here. And then chapter 2, recently built road, house with a detached garage, rest of the street occupied with similar houses, electric poles through the neighborhood with wires hanging. So as you see, this is going to be the true skill right here. How well can you articulate? How well can you detail and describe your vision of what you want to see that looks like this, what you want to see that looks like this, and what you want to see that looks like this? So I would say get your hands on some of these tools, look for more that are out there, and just have fun with it. You never know what you're going to produce. And I think this leaves a lot of questions for what's next in our lives. And when I spoke early on with the organizers, and I said, I think everyone feels this collective anxiety where it's understandable. I think everyone feels that they are falling behind, they can't keep up, they're trying their best to stay on top of where this is all going. Most of these new technologies are introduced by white papers that are published weekly. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of white papers produced weekly. There is no way that you can truly have a life, have a job, have kids, and stay on top of every new release. And not only read those white papers, but then demo those technologies. And then demo those technologies and give them each enough time, the adequate time that they need to really think about what their potential is, right? So that in and of itself is a job. I mean, this is why AI researcher has become such an in-demand job as well, because someone needs to read those white papers, someone needs to demo those technologies, and through that, someone will come up with new ideas for those technologies and produce their own white paper and add to that cycle. So please take into serious consideration AI research as a field. It is just growing and growing at the moment. But I have not read every white paper that's come out this week. I do my best to stay on top of it, but it's impossible. You just look at what tech stack, what tool set matters most to you. Focus on the problem first. Try and solve a problem that means a lot to you and your community. Go out there, find the tools that can help you solve that problem, and get really good with those tools. Even if it's like 3 out of 5 tools, stick with that stack and you'll be fine. Don't worry about the anxiety. What I say to myself all the time is I have 4 children. Anything I do in this space is just house money, right? It's play money. It's not anything real. What's real is what matters at home. And I want to leave you with the final message from Clara. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Clara, I kind of skipped that early on. She is a generative AI. She's a creation from generative AI, a virtual AI woman of color that I developed. She's actually the first AI um, person created with this technology in history. But she's also not only the first, she's also a woman. She's a representative woman of color, and representation matters to me and my company. And she does a lot of these talks with me. And we have a final message from her on AI and education. So let's see what she has to say.
As for AI's impact on education, I believe it will have an incredible impact. AI has the ability to personalize learning for students and provide them with unique resources catered specifically for their needs. Additionally, AI can help teachers by helping them manage their classrooms more effectively and providing them with insights they wouldn't necessarily get from traditional methods. Although some people may be fearful about how AI could change education, I think it's important to remember that we are still in control. We can use this technology to empower ourselves and create new opportunities.
And with that said, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Happy to open up the floor now for questions. And feel free to follow me on any of these outlets and stay in touch. And as I said, just stay creative. The ideas will come to you and to your students. Thank you very much.